you ever woken up in the middle of the night feeling like something was watching you? But when you looked around, there was nothing there, or at least nothing you could see. Nighttime has a way of making the world feel different. Shadows stretch a little longer, silence feels heavier, and the air carries whispers you can't quite explain. It's in those quiet hours when the world sleeps that the things lurking in the dark come alive. Maybe it's just your imagination, or maybe you're not alone. If you really want to feel the chills crawl up your spine, turn off the lights, let the darkness surround you. Put on your headphones and listen closely. Every creak, every whisper, every breath will just feel a little too real. Are you ready? Tonight I have three unsettling tales for you. A woman who discovers she's not as alone in her apartment as she thought. A mirror that doesn't just reflect, but watches. And a closet that whispers in the dead of the night, begging to be opened. Each story more disturbing than the last. But don't worry, it's just a story, right? Lara had just moved into her new apartment, a cozy little place on the third floor, tucked away at the end of a quiet hallway. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. Freshly painted walls, brand new logs, and just enough space to feel comfortable. At first, everything seemed perfect, until she started noticing the drafts. Strange, cold air slipping into her room at night, even though the windows were shut tight. And then, the noises started. Soft, almost too quiet to notice. Scrapping, shuffling like something moving just beyond the walls. At first, she told herself it was just the building settling. But deep down, she knew something wasn't right. At first, Laura brushed it off. Old buildings make noise, right? But as the nights passed, the cold air felt different. Unnatural, not the kind that creeps in from a drafty window. This was different. A sharp, unnatural chill that seemed to seep out of the vents. Even when the heater was on, Laura would wake up shivering in the middle of the night, wrapping herself tighter in her blankets, but the cold still clung on her skin. Then came the noises, faint at first, just soft clicks and scratches, barely noticeable. She told herself it was just the building settling, pipes shifting, maybe even a rat. But then, the sound changed. The crashing became slower, more deliberate, like fingernail draggings against metal. Sometimes it would stop for a moment, and then start again. Almost feel like something was waiting. One night, the scratching was louder, closer. Laura lay in bed, frozen, her ears straining in the darkness. It wasn't just random noise anymore. It had a pattern. A slow, deliberate movement like something or someone was shifting inside the vents. Her heart pounded as she grabbed her phone and clinged onto her bed, aiming the flashlight toward the vent above. The metal slats were slightly bent, like they had been moved or pried upon. Then she saw them, eyes, white, unblinking, reflecting the glow of her flashlight. For a second, just a second, neither of them moved. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Her mind screamed at her to run, to scream, to do anything. Then the eyes shifted, the face pulled back into the blackness, and suddenly, scrap. The vent cover rattled violently, the sound of something scurrying, fast, frantic echoed through the depths. Lara stumbled backward, falling off the bed, her phone slipping from her hand. She scrambled to her feet, chest heaving, staring up at the vent. It was empty now, but she knew he was still in there, still watching, still listening. Mia had always been drawn to old things, objects with a history, a past. Antique shops were her escape, filled with forgotten treasures waiting to be discovered. But nothing fascinated her more than mirrors. There was something enchanting about them. The way they held reflections of people long gone, the way they seemed to whisper stories of the past. So when she stumbled upon an old ornate mirror in a little second-hand shop, she knew she had to have it. The frame was carved with intricate patterns, aged with time, its glass slightly wrapped, as if it had seen things it would never forget. The shopkeeper hesitated when she reached for it. He almost seemed relieved when she took it off his hands. Mia just laughed it off. After all, a mirror is just a mirror, right? At first, it was nothing, just a beautiful old mirror sitting in the corner of her bedroom. But soon, something felt off. Mia could not quite explain it. The reflection was normal, or at least it should have been. But sometimes, when she glanced at it from the corner of her eye, it seemed wrong. The light hit it strangely, almost as if the glass was just a little too deep, a little too dark. And then there was the moment, quick, fleeting, when she swore her reflection moved. A blink that came a fraction of a second after she had already closed her eyes. A tilt of her head that didn't match her own movement perfectly. She told herself it was just her imagination, just the old glass playing tricks on her. But the more she watched it, the more she started to feel something like inside the mirror was watching back. It happened late one night. Mia was getting ready for bed, brushing her hair in front of the mirror, lost in thought. That's when she noticed it. Something so small, so subtle, that at first she wasn't even sure it was real. She blinked, and in the mirror, her reflection blinked back, just a second too late. She froze. Her heart pounded as she stared into the glass, willing herself to move slowly, carefully. She raised her hand. Her reflection followed. She tilted her head. It mirrored her perfectly. But then it didn't. For a single horrifying moment, the woman in the mirror kept moving, even after Mia had gone completely still. A flicker of a smile twitched at the corner of its lips. Mia stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. The room plunged into darkness, but in the faint glow of the moonlight, she swore she saw it. Her reflection, standing there, watching her. And then it took a step forward. Mia's breath hitched. She stood frozen, her mind screaming at her to run, but she could not. She didn't dare look away. Her reflection was still smiling. Not her smile, not human. It stretched too wide, too unnatural, like something trying to imitate her, but failing, and then, behind it, a shape. Something else was in the mirror, a shadowy figure lurking in the wrapped glass, just beyond her reflection. Tall, twisted, motionless. Mia's hands trembled as she reached for the light switch. Her eyes locked on the figure in the mirror, but just as her fingers found the switch, the reflection moved first. Not Mia, not her real body. The thing in the mirror snapped its head towards her, that unnatural smile still stretching across its face. Then the lights flickered back on, and everything was normal, except for one thing. The mirror, her beautiful antique mirror, was now empty. Her reflection was gone. She spun around, nothing, just the empty room, silent and still. Her chest heaved, panic clawing at her throat, but when she turned back to the mirror, the reflection was gone. Not wrapped, not distorted, just gone. She stared at the empty glass, her own face missing from it, the space where she should be now a deep, endless void. Then, a single pale hand pressed against the other side of the glass, from inside the mirror, and it wasn't hers. Mia didn't think, she didn't hesitate. She grabbed the mirror, yanking it from the wall with shaking hands, and dragged it out of her apartment. She didn't care about the noise, didn't care about the stares from her neighbors as she carried it down the stairs, barefoot and trembling. All she knew was that it had to go. By the time she reached the alley behind her building, she was gasping for air. Without a second thought, she lifted the mirror, heaving it forward, and it shattered. Glass exploded across the pavement, shards glittering under the streetlight. But as the pieces settled, Mia's breath caught in her throat, because in the largest fragment still intact, Reflection stared back at her, not hers. The face was still smiling. She ran. That night she barely slept. The mirror was gone, the pieces scattered in the alley, but she could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. Days passed, she forced herself to move on, told herself it was over. But then, small things started happening. A glimpse of movement in the corner of her eye when she passed a window, her reflection in the bathroom mirror standing just a little too still. And at night, when the apartment was silent, she swore she could hear something. A faint whisper, muffled like a voice trapped behind glass. Daniel had never been the type to scare easily. He prided himself on being logical, grounded. Ghost stories, urban legends, those were just stories. But ever since he moved into his new apartment, one thing kept bothering him: the closet. No matter how many times he shut it, no matter how firmly he latched the door, he would wake up to find it open, just an inch, just enough to see the darkness inside. At first, he blamed the old things. Maybe the apartment had a slight tilt. Maybe air pressure from the vents nudged it open. Simple explanation, logical reasons. But then things got stranger. He started waking up at the exact same time every night, 2:47 a.m. And every single time the closest door would open. Just an inch. Daniel tried to ignore it. He really did. He shoved a chair in front of the closet, stuffed towels against the door, anything to keep it shut. But no matter what he did, every night at 2:47 a.m., it was open. Just an inch. And then, one night, he heard it. A whisper. So faint, so breathy, he almost thought he imagined it. Daniel. His blood ran cold. He shot up in bed, his heart hammering. The room was silent. Too silent, but the closet door. It was open, wider this time. Not an inch, a few inches, just enough to see the darkness inside, stretching back, further than it should. He stared, frozen, ears straining. Then, come closer. Daniel's breath hitched. The voice was soft, almost pleading. It wasn't coming from his room. It was coming from inside the closet. Daniel didn't move. He didn't breathe. The whisper was so soft, so close, that for a moment he wondered if it was coming from inside his own head. And then it spoke again, louder this time, more urgent. Daniel, please, I need your help. His skin prickled. His hands clenched into fists. No, this wasn't real. It could not be real. And yet, the closet door creaked, slowly, opening just a little wider. Daniel's stomach twisted. He could see inside now, not just darkness, but depth. The closet door seemed to stretch back further than it should, like a hallway leading into somewhere else. And then the whisper changed. It wasn't pleading anymore. It was desperate, panicked. Daniel, don't let it out. His breath caught in his throat. His body screamed at him to move, to run, to do something. And that's when the door on its own slammed open. Daniel barely had time to react. The closet door slammed open with such force that it rattled the walls. And for the first time, he saw it. It wasn't just darkness inside. The closet had changed. It stretched back too far, an impossible black void deeper than his apartment should allow. And something was standing in it. At first, it was just a shadow. Too tall, too thin. But as his eyes adjusted, the shape moved. Long, bony fingers curled around the doorframe, stretching outward, like something testing the boundaries of its prison. Then, a face. Not fully human, not right. Hollow sunken eyes locked onto him, a mouth stretching wide, too wide. And then, in a voice that was no longer a whisper, but something else entirely, it spoke. You should not have looked. Daniel's body finally obeyed. He ran, out of his room, down the hall, not stopping even as he heard the sound. The scraping of something crawling out of the closet after him. and just as he reached the door, the lights flickered off. Daniel never went back. He didn't pack his things, didn't explain to his landlord. He left the apartment that night and never looked over his shoulder. But the nightmare followed him. Every night he would wake up at 2:47 a.m., his heart pounding, the memory of that whisper still curling around his mind. He tried to convince himself it was over, that whatever was in that closet was trapped, left behind. But then, weeks later, he heard something, a voicemail. It was from an unknown number, the voice distant, shaking. Hello. I think this was your old apartment. I found your name on some mail. Look, I don't know if this is some kind of prank, but. A pause, a breath, then whispered so softly, so terrified. Did your closet ever open on its own? The message ended, and Daniel knew it was never just his closet, and it was never really shut. We like to tell ourselves that fear is irrational, that the scratching at the window is just a tree branch, that the whisper in the dark is just the wind, that the closet door opening on its own is just bad hinges. But sometimes our fears are justified. Because what if the whisper isn't just in your head? What if the thing lurking just beyond the edge of your vision is real? But what if, one night, at 2:47 a.m., you wake up and your closet door is open, just an inch? Tonight we have seen the cracks in reality, the places where the shadows stretch too far, where whispers slip through closed doors, where reflections don't always belong to us. So remember, the things you see in the dark, they might be real. That reflection in the mirror, it might not just be you looking back. And that space under your bed, behind your closet door, or in the corners of an empty room, it might not be as empty as you think. And with that, our time in the darkness comes to an end. But remember, the stories may stop, but the shadows remain. So tonight, when you turn off the lights, when the silence settles, when you catch a glimpse of movement in the corner of your eye, ask yourself, are you really alone? Sleep well if you can.